All right. This week we begin with vaYiqra, chapter 17, verse 1. Um, I've been trying to come up with a little bit better way of doing this so it's not so boring and we don't spend so much time at the beginning of these chapters. I completely forgot I've gotten off course there with my new way of doing things, and I did this the old way. So I do apologize. I'm only going to read through the first like 7 or 8 verses, and that's it. And there's a reason for it. I'll talk about that here in a minute. So if you can, please stand and cover yourself for the reading of the word. This is the Hebrew text as it is written. It says, Vayedaber Yahweh el Moshe lemor. Daber el Aharon el Banav ve'el kol b'nei Yisrael ve'alehem ze hadavar asher zira Yahweh lemor. Ish mi beit Yisrael asher yishechat shor o kesev o ez b'machana o asher yishechat מחוץ למחנה. ואל פתח אוהל מועד לא הביאו להקריב קרבן ליהווה לפני משכן יהווה דם יחשב לאיש ההוא דם שפך וניחרת האיש ההוא מקרב עמו. למען אשר יביאו בני ישראל את זבחיהם אשר הם זובחים על פני השדה והביאום ליהווה אל פתח אוהל מועד אל הכהן וזבחו זבחי שלמים ליהווה אותם ושרח הכהן את הדם על מזבח יהווה פתח אוהל מועד והקטיר החלב לריח ניחוח ליהווה ולא יזבחו עוד את זבחיהם לשעירים אשר הם זונים אחריהם חוקת olam tiyeh zot lahem ledorotam. Okay. So this begins like any other thing would begin. And he spoke Yahweh to very, what was I thinking of here? Yeah. Let me get this thing here. But I don't want to lose my page. So I'm going to, nope, that's going to lose my page. All right. I looked these words up just to see if I was using them properly. And yeah, I don't know. Who can tell? There is the word subject, and then there is the word topic. According to the dictionary, they are all but the same word. The subject is that which forms a basic matter of thought, discussion, investigation. A topic is a part of the subject, arguments, ideas drawn from the subject. So, when we have, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, we are either starting a brand new subject, which is generally where they break up the chapters in the Hebrew Bible. Where the chapters are broken up in the English Bible are not correct. They're way off. But the Hebrew Bible tends to be right, not always, but it does tend to be more right than wrong. And so it'll be a new subject when it's a new chapter. And then within that subject, you have various topics, and they both begin the same way. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, at least that's how it's working in the law. If he spoke to somebody else, it would say, and Yahweh spoke to Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu or whatever. But in this case, since it's the law, it's mostly Moshe. He has spoken to Aharon a couple of times, but mostly Moshe. And this lets us know this is either a subject or a topic. In this case, it's a topic. We're on the same subject. And the same subject are the daily sacrifice, or not the daily sacrifice, the sin sacrifice, the yearly sin sacrifice. So anyway, he spoke to Moshe saying, then very literal English on the next verse, speak to Aharon and to sons his and to all children of Israel, and say you to them, this the word that commanded Yahweh to say. Okay, so that's not terribly hard to understand. It seems a little out of order if you only speak English, but if you speak pretty much any other language, English sounds a little out of order, because it is. We did everything backwards. I have no idea why. Some English teacher will have to teach us that someday. So the word daber, it's the word for setting in a row, ranging in order, to lead, to guide. So it's more than just it's more than God saying to Moshe, speak to Aharon. It's more than that. It's make sure he understands this. Set your words in order, lead him and guide him so that he'll fully understand what you're about to say to him. This is more the more important word that we use in Hebrew to make sure you understand. We want you to make it very clear. And so that's how this verse is starting off. Make it clear. This is El Aharon. Make it clear to Aharon. Ve'el, and to Banav, his sons. It's a son sometimes used of children of both sexes because it's B'nai, it's the word B'nai. And so they change it to sons because they don't see that his daughters would be involved in any of this, so they make it sons. Well, that's actually questionable because his daughters were involved in this. Not his direct descendants, perhaps, but his daughters were involved. Anyway, this is Ve'el, so and to Kol, all B'nai, all the children. And you know what it's going to say, Yisrael. So you're going to say this to everybody. You're not just going to say it. You're going to do your best to make sure they totally understand what you're about to say. That means that what he's about to say is going to be very important. Already losing my voice. That's weird. All right. So you get the idea. This is very, very important. The amarta. So this is the word, really more the word for say. This is to bring it to light, to bear light on the subject. So this isn't the important word. He's already said the important word, but this is your more common word for say to them or something like that. And this is alehem, so say to them. Zeh, which is this. Hadavar. This is the word. The word. And so it's going to be peaches. No, no. When they say a word, we have this in English. Everybody calls the Bible the Word of God. Well, it's a lot more than just one word in that book. So you get the idea, right? The word it can be a single word. It can be a sentence if it's it is better to remain silent and be thought of as a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. That's a word. it's it's good advice to live by, right? Uh, the only other one I could think of is don't eat the yellow snow. It sounds like I was looking for something a little better than that. Anyway, so that's a word. If you say, hey, I'm going to be there on Monday and help you out and blah, 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 that's a word. That's a promise. And a word is a promise. So it's used of a precept, of an edict, of a royal mandate is called a word. A law, an individual law is called a word. And that's what's happening right now. But this is the davar, this is the word asher ziva, that is commanded. This sets up, it constitutes, it decrees, it determines something. It causes something to exist. It's a command, a commandment. And who is it by? Yahweh himself. Then it says lemor, which is that word amar, which is the more common uh, saying or to say something. Lemor would be to say. So we would write saying. We don't say to say, we say saying in English. All right, so our translation. Speak to Aharon and his sons and to all the children of Israel and say to them, this is the word that Yahweh commanded, saying. So we're about to tell you what Yahweh commanded. We haven't gotten that far yet. Then it says, very literal English, man from house, Yisrael, that he slaughter ox or lamb or goat in camp, or that he slaughter from outside to camp. It's not to go camping, it's just from outside the camp. But it says ish, man. So you realize there's something going on here, right? There's got to be a reason why you say man. Because in Hebrew, this is basically an idiomatic way of saying something else. But let's move on. I'll bring it back around. Mibait, man, from house. From house. There's a lot of ways to use that word. Let's take it to the house. Means let's go home. The house of God, the temple. The house of Abraham, the Jewish people. It's used in a lot of different ways, right? And it's used of movable houses. It's used of tents. It's even used of a royal palace, a fortress, a dwelling place. The place where you live, you call a house. Let's see. Anyway, your house is used of your descendants, the house of Abraham. So it's used of descendants. Then it says the house of what? Israel. So you get that it's saying to the descendants of Israel. Anyway, it says Asher Yishachat. Okay, that was weird. Okay, have a little something going on up there. So we have our next word. It's the word for. Okay, still having problems. Da, 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 I'm getting the okay sign again. So we're back on the word slaughter. This is to slay an animal. To sacrifice, to make an offering, to make a sacrifice. All of that means the same thing. See, we think of as slaughtering an animal, you slaughter it so that you can make a sacrifice. In the Bible, in the Hebrew language of the Bible times, to slay an animal was a sacrifice. And to sacrifice, you couldn't do that without the slaying of an animal because they're both the same exact thing. They are not two different things. Slaying, you do not slay an animal to have a sacrifice. Slaying an animal is the sacrifice. So the sacrifice is slaying the animal. They are not two different things. That's a Western world kind of a thing. We had to split it up for some reason because we're big dummies and can't handle simple things. Anyway, so we're going to slaughter what? The word shor, which means ox. Wow, that's awful. Obviously wrong. All kinds of different words coming. It's an ox. This is O. Remember in Hebrew, O is how you say or. We say or, Hebrews say oh. Oh, chesed. So, or a lamb. If you're going to slaughter an ox or a lamb, oh, it says again, or as a goat, as a she goat. Then it says, bamachana, in the camp. And, you'll see encampment or something like that, but it's the camp. It's the place where all this stuff takes place. It's used of the camp that soldiers set up when they're going off to war. The camps that wandering tribes used to set up when they would settle in one place for a little while. Blah blah blah. That's pretty much it. Then it says "o," which again means "or," asher yishachat, or slaughter michutz, from outside, from the outside of the camp, not in the camp, but outside the camp. Lamachane, well, that's the camp. Okay, so the translation, you remember it said ish, man, man. So what is that saying? Any man. Anyone. I could have said it that way. I could have just said anyone. Because it's really not just a man. Because anyway. Any man of the house of Israel, so any man of the family of Israel, Israel. If any man of the family of Israel slaughter an ox or lamb or goat inside the camp or slaughter outside the camp, and it just stops. The sentence hadn't even finished yet. We don't even have a period to put on the end of this. And now we have to go to verse 4. I hate that the Hebrew Bible got broken up the way it did, because everything gets taken out on its own, and you can make a whole thing of verse 3 and then make a whole different thing of verse 4, not knowing that they're both the same verse. Anyway, so continuing on, there's some more of that verse said, because in Hebrew, they're not worried about in Bible Hebrew, they're not worried about run-on sentences and stuff like that. That's a Western thing, not an Eastern biblical thing. So anyway, very literal in English on verse 4. And to enter tent appointed times, not make come, which means bring, to make approach, offering to Yahweh, to faces Mishkan, Yahweh, so it's the Mishkan of Yahweh. Blood he reckoned to man, the he, which of course is how we would say these. Blood poured out and will be cut off the man, the he, that would be these, from midst people he. So that man's going to be cut off from the midst of his people. All right. So it's saying, you got to know where we stop for us to understand this. So if he's going to slaughter an ox, a lamb, or a goat inside the camp or outside the camp, then it says, and Pitak, and the entrance, Ohel Moed, lo. So if he's going to sacrifice the ox, what else was it? I forget the three things. The ox, the something, and the lamb. It was goat or lamb? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so if he's going to sacrifice or slaughter the ox, the goat, or the lamb, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meetings, if he is going to make this offering or make this, slaughter, and he doesn't bring it to the entrance of the Ohel Moed, you following what's going on here? If he does that and he doesn't bring it, because Hevio is from Ba, so he doesn't bring it to the entrance of the Ohel Moed, Leha Kariv, and draw near carbon, this offering, because it's an offering. If we're sacrificing just inside or just outside the camp, then this is an offering. And if you're not, he's saying, if you're not bringing this offering, uh, la Yahweh lipne, to before the face of Yahweh, and before the face of the Mishkan, or before the Mishkan of Yahweh, uses his name again. Dam, that's a word for blood. Yehashev, it will be reckoned. It will be imputed, laish, to the man. Blood will be, I can't think of another word, imputed to the man. It will be reckoned to the man. It will be, I don't know what other word I could use. Anyway, we'll figure this out. It says hahu, which is these. Dam is blood again. Shafach will be poured out, or is being poured out, or has been poured out. Venicharat, and this guy is going to be cut off. It's literally used of like when David cut off the corner of Shaul's. I guess he cut the the fringe off of the kanaf, the corner of the talit, when he was in the cave. I guess that's what they're saying, is it was used in that verse. So it's you would think of it that way. It's actually cutting something off. To cut somebody off is to kill them, or to cut them off, like cut them off at the pass so they can't get around you. It's used in a lot of different ways like that. But here we're being talked about being cut off, ha'ish, the man, hahu, these men, mikerev, from the midst, the interior of what? Amo, the people, his people, to be specific. So here's the translation. And do not, wait a minute. So if he does this thing, he makes the slaughter inside or outside, and does not bring his offering before Yahweh, or to the faces of Yahweh, near the entrance of the Ohel Moed, before, it's two faces again, before the Mishkan of Yahweh, blood will be reckoned to these men who do this, who make this sacrifice but don't bring it to the entrance of the Ohel Moed. Blood will be reckoned to them. The blood, it says, that has been shed. So the blood of those animals will now be reckoned to them. What does that mean? It means they'll be unclean. When you touch blood of a corpse, it's as if you touched a human being here. That's what they're saying, because it's the blood of that animal that is now being reckoned against the man. So now he's unclean. He will be cut off. He will separate himself from the midst of the people, because he's unclean. So, well, I was going to say some things. I'm going to save it for just a little bit. We've got time to get. We'll get through this whole thing. So, verse 5, very literally in English, to purpose that he go, they children Yisrael, sacrifice there that they slaughter upon faces the field, and bring them to Yahweh to entrance tent, appointed times to the Cohen, and slaughter they slaughter me, peaceful to Yahweh them. Some of these get really ridiculous, don't they? And for some reason, they make total sense to me. But anyway, lema'an. This word is an interesting word. It is to designate by one's word, their purpose or their intent. Um, it shows intention. Use of the cause by which anyone is moved, the reason for the intention, if you will. Use of purpose and intention, which anyone has in view or on your account. In other words, your welfare or your benefit, the reason why, they're doing this thing. I'm going to come back to that when I get to the translation. It'll make more sense. Then it says, Asher Yaviu. Well, that's your word, Bo, that they go. Now, we're still on the same sentence, by the way. We're only going through one sentence today in Hebrew. Even though there's 7 of them in English, there's only one in Hebrew. I mean, I could break it up into maybe 3, because you could break up the very first Yahweh said to Moshe. You could make that something separate, though I wouldn't, because it's what's connected to the verse. But I still think you could get away with it. And then there's within this a couple of places where it would make sense to break it up into sentences. But for some reason, how and why this was broken up the way it was, I don't know. I don't know how you're supposed to follow it. So I've done something very special at the end to help us follow it. Anyway, so that they go, that they bring. It could be either way. We'll find out. B'nai, the children. Yeah, so it's bring. Yisrael, so the things that they bring. Then it says et, which has no meaning. Zivchehem, their sacrifices. They're going to bring their sacrifices, right? The thing that this is of the slaying of an animal. Asher him zochim, so that they slaughter. So they're going to bring the slaughters that they slaughter, the sacrifices that they slaughter is how we would say it for it to make sense in English, even though it's the same word in Hebrew. This is all which is upon Penei, the faces. Someone slaughtered on the face of something. Hasadeh, the field. So remember, it's starting off, it's saying that they're going to sacrifice the ox, the goat, or the sheep, the lamb, on the face of the ground, on the field, the whether it's inside, well, I guess it's probably say ground, on the inside of the camp, or on the outside of the camp, right? What's being said here is the blood is being shed on the ground. Then it says vehevium, and bring them the sacrifices, the slaughtered animals, la Yahweh, to Yahweh. Then it says el, to petach, that's a word for entrance or a gate, or a door, but it's of the entrance, not so much the gate or the door. Ohel moed, of course, going to bring it to the entrance of the tent of meetings. Then it says el hakohen, to the Kohen. In other words, they'll be there. Vezahu, and that's where the slaughter, the zivhei, should be slaughtered. Salamim, which is peace in plural, so it's Peaces. That one's weird because if you say pieces, it's the wrong word. La Yahweh Otam. Okay, now you remember I talked about lema'an, and it was of intention and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I could say it this way, and I'll say it different here in a little bit, but it could be said this way. For the convenience of the children of Israel, lema'an, for the convenience of the children of Israel, and yes, this is not what I'm going to go with, but it is correct, who sacrifice such that they slaughter on the ground, they can bring them to Yahweh, to the entrance of the Ohel Moed, the tent of meetings, to the priest, and slaughter peace, in plural, sacrifices to Yahweh with them being the Kohanim. So all I can say is wow, wow, wow. This is absolute evidence that sacrifices were made when there was no tabernacle nor temple. Absolute proof that the idea that we cannot make sacrifices because there is no temple or temple priest is false, false, false. Did you hear what it said? I'm going to go back over it again here in a minute. But let's go through 6 because I'm running out of time. Very literally in English, it says, and sprinkle the Cohen, the blood upon altar Yahweh, entrance tent, appointed times, and make smoke the fat to scent soothing to Yahweh. Maybe this will tell us why this is so important. So we have vezarach, that's the sprinkle. And remember, they take their finger and they dip it in and they spatter it. It really is the word ought to be used here, spatter. I never say sprinkle, but spatter. And so, or they have the little thing they dip and they sling it, and so it causes a spattering pattern, which is why I use that word instead of sprinkle. Then it says ha-Cohen, so the Cohen is going to spatter what? Hadam, the blood. He's going to splatter the blood al, which means upon or on or above, misbach, the altar. I know you're used to me saying misbach, but this was spelled mizbach. It's the same word. It's the altar. Yahweh, so it's the altar of Yahweh. Petach, so that's entrance, the opening, door, gate, blah, 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 but it's about the entrance and not the door and the gate. So the entrance, Ohel Moed, so at the entrance of the tent of meetings. vaYiqra, no, it's going to do that. I'm trying to say the wrong word. And make smoke, to give a scent, to be fragrant, to offer odors. No, he's going to put it on the barbecue and smoke's going to go up. Anyway, ha-chelev, and this is why, because this is the fat. He's going to put the fat on there at this moment. In this time, you're going to put the fat on there because we've already been through, it starts with the fat, then the meat goes on, blah, blah, blah. There's a way to do everything. And so he's going to put the fat on there, and the fat's going to cause that smoke to go up, and boy, that's going to smell good to us, right? Is it going to smell good to God? No, that's not what's about to be said. I'm just going to tell you now. Le'reach, the smoke and the scent are going to go up. And then it says nichoach, a soothing, something that brings satisfaction, something that brings delight. La Yahweh, to Yahweh. Oh, see, Rob, you're wrong. God thinks it smells good. No, no, no. All right. And the Cohen will spatter the blood on the altar of Yahweh at the entrance of the Ohel Moed and make the smoke of the fat go up. Maybe I should have said, but see, this is an idiom. To scent soothing would be the literal way to say that idiom in English, which of course makes no sense in English, but this is to scent soothing for Yahweh. So is it that we're sending up something that smells good to Yahweh? No, it's a Hebrew idiom. It means it gives God the pleasure in knowing that his children are covered. So here we know, now we're getting why this is so important. Instead of making your sacrifices in either outside or inside the camp, and just eating it and going your way, you take these things to the entrance of the tent of meetings. The priest takes it, and he's going to take the blood from that slaughtered animal. He's going to sprinkle that blood, and you're going to be covered. And that makes God happy. That brings him joy. That is a sweet smelling savor. That's what that means to God. So you get the idea why? Because instead of you just wasting your time and your energy here and it being nothing more than just a meal, now it's going to be a lot more than a meal. Because not only are you covered, God's real happy about it. All right, verse 7. Very, strange English. And not he slaughter they while sacrifice there to Heres, that they commit adultery after them. Statute eternal shall be this to them, to generations them. So we start off with belo and not. Yiz bechu, that's your word for slaughter. So do not slaughter, and they will not slaughter. It just depends on how this thing goes. But it says ode. We're going to have to call in some reinforcements for this word. That's the reason why I didn't want to lose this page. Uh-oh, I just clicked the button Lord knows what I just did to the computer. Hold on. I got to go to the other thing. All right. So, pulling out some reinforcements for this word owed. It comes, Strong's connects the number 5750 to it. But anyway, don't look it up, the Strong's. That's when that book was first written. Do I have that here? Yeah. Is that what this is, or is this the wrong book? Yep. Can you guys see how big this is? That's after this is the second edition. This is after they condensed it. I don't have $150,000, so I can't buy the one that before. It's a lot bigger. So now you get a Strong's Concordance, and it's this big. It's worthless. Don't read it. Don't waste your time. They don't have any out there that are worth anything anymore because they destroyed his work. It was a pretty good work, especially for the fact that the man didn't have a computer, and he did that good of a job putting it together, and he didn't know the difference between a sheen and a scene. That was very obvious, but whatever. I can live with that, because I know the difference, so it doesn't matter to me. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you don't have a $150,000 original edition of the Strong's Concordance, burn it because it's worthless. They have ruined his work. Anyway, and his work wasn't really all that good. It was impressive because he didn't have a computer, but it wasn't really all that good. Anyway, let's look at a much better work. It's called the Gesenius. Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon to the Old Testament. Oh, I'm ashamed that I even put that together. I put this together. Large print edition, HWF Gesenius. Wait a minute, what are you saying? Gesenius wrote that back in the 1800s. Yes, but he wrote it in German. It's been translated, and the translation that we had was very, very bad. I redid a whole lot of that work, but the biggest problem was that all of the Hebrew just looked like ink blocks. And it was in a small version. I made a giant print version. Anyway, you probably can't get any of those anymore because we don't print them anymore. They just got too expensive to print a book this big. Anyway, so of this word owed, going over again, repeating. To begin something anew repeatedly, often incorrectly rendered continually. And this is important here. It is incorrect to render this as continually. That's important. Let's see, what else did he say? Again and again, blah, 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 as yet, still. And then, but here's the main one that's going to connect to us today. While, yet, while yet. In the time when yet it was, or it is. In the time when it was, or in the time when it is. That's very important for you to understand. If you're going to truly understand this word, you have to understand that this is a word that covers a very either specific time, like from 4 to 5 p.m., or a very non-specific time, like the first day of creation. That is a non-specific time. Oh, it wasn't, Rob. That was 24 hours in a single day. No, it wasn't. You didn't have a sun and a moon. How are you going to have a 24-hour day, bonehead? Oh, I hate that argument. It's so dumb. But no, the earth was not created in 7 consecutive 24-hour days. That wouldn't even been possible until day 4, going into day 5. Then that would have been possible because at that point you have a sun and a moon, and you actually have what could be a 24-hour day. But the word day is a period of time, and it's yom, Well, this is almost exactly the same type of thing. It is of a period of time, whether it's a specific amount of time, like a 24-hour period, or as in the first day of creation, that could have been hundreds of billions, hundreds of trillions, hundreds of Googleplexes, whatever. I think that's a real word. Because I think we used to actually use that word way back in the day. But whatever. Of years, millions, billions, trillions, whatever years, that could have been that in 24-hour days time. That could have been that. It was unspecified. How about when they were in the wilderness? That was 40 years. The day they were in the wilderness, 40 years. The day they were in Egypt, that was 430 years, right? And even then, those are just rounded off numbers. We don't know the exact actual number because it's not important. Same thing here. But what's important for us to know is that it is not continual. That is very important for us to know. So I'm going to move on and we'll talk a little more about that here in a minute. Then this is et zivhechem. I kind of said that wrong. My h went in the wrong place. Zivhechem. I said it the other way. It's sacrifice, anyway, the slaughter of an animal. La se'irim. Se'ir. Hair. Does this remind you of something? Because you realize we're still talking about that hairy goat. We haven't gotten off that subject yet. On a different, what was the word I used? Topic. But we're on the same subject. We're still talking about those dang hairy goats. Anyway, so that's our hairy. It only says hairy. Doesn't use the word for goat. Doesn't need to. It has already said ox, goat, or sheep. We're making the connection back to the hairy goat now by just saying hairy. Anyway, asher him zonim. So that they commit adultery. They got to do this so they'll commit adultery. Maybe it probably says low after that so that they don't commit adultery. But anyway, I'm not seeing a negative word here. Anyway, but this is another one of those things that the West has completely messed up something unbelievable. This is not about committing adultery. It's not about, you made this sacrifice in the dirt, so that means you had an affair with somebody else's wife. No. You got to realize that this is it's a metaphor to be given to idolatry, to the worship of idols, to permit oneself to be drawn away by another into idolatry. It's used in that way. The prophets use this word for those Hebrews who, after entering into the marriage union with God, chose to worship idols. Used in the expression to go a whoring. Now that's very American, very Western, very English, and has nothing to do with the Jewish Bible. They never said that in the Hebrew Bible, where it would say that, by the way, and it's not saying that. After other idols, or to imitate the actions of the non-Jews, which, a Jew probably wrote that, but that's very Western and very wrong. So sometimes we can't always go with what these lexicons say, because one, they're being very broad. They're covering every possibility that's out there, but that's not what's happening here. They are not worshiping idols. What they're doing is breaking their covenant, their marriage covenant with God. If you're not in a marriage covenant with God, you are not saved. That's what salvation is. So, anyway, to be in a marriage covenant with God. And he's saying that if you do this and you don't bring it to the entrance of the tent, you're committing adultery. You're breaking your covenant. That's pretty serious stuff. This is Aharehim, that's a place behind in the background. Genesis 22:30 should then be read, and behold, a ram in the background. In other words, they said, not behind his back, but at a distance in the part which lay before his eyes. You follow, he's standing here, he's getting ready to kill his son, but over there in the background, even though it wasn't behind him, it was out of the way, over there in the distance. That's what is being said here. So it's not behind, which is how the Western idea of whoring after, going, chasing after these idols. No, no. That means that you're committing this crime from a distance. Anyway, Hukat, this will be a statute, an established, defined law, olam, for the beginning or end of which is either uncertain or else not defined. We're running into that a couple of times here today, aren't we? Then we have TS, or shall be or will be. Zot lachem, this will be. Le do rotam, to you and to your generations. All right, so let's put this one verse back together. And I'm going to change what I said here in a couple places. You'll probably catch it. If you don't, you weren't listening. Anyway, so remember, all 7 of these verses are a single verse in Hebrew. It should have been written that way. So we're going to put them together as a single verse. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to Aharon and to his sons and to the children of Israel, and say to them, this is the word that Yahweh commanded, saying, any man of the family of Israel who slaughters an ox or lamb or goat inside the camp or slaughters outside the camp and does not bring his offering before Yahweh near the entrance of the tent of meetings before the tabernacle, the Mishkan of Yahweh, blood will be reckoned to these men. The blood that he has shed, in other words, the blood of the animal. He will separate himself from the midst of his people, because the children of Israel sacrificed such that because the children of Israel sacrifice such that they slaughter on the ground, because they sacrifice such, it's telling you that they sacrifice, because they sacrifice such that they slaughter on the ground, they will instead bring them to Yahweh, to the entrance of the tent of meetings, to the Cohen, to the priest, and slaughter peace sacrifices to Yahweh with them. And the Cohen will spatter the blood on the altar of Yahweh at the entrance of the tent of meetings and make the smoke of the fat, this being pleasure in knowing his children, or brings pleasure in knowing his children are covered to God. And they will not slaughter while the sacrifice of the hairy goat takes place, and commit adultery after them being the Kohanim. This shall be an eternal statute to them, to their generations. Can you will you go to the split screen thingy for me, please? The split screen thing. Yeah. You should just be able to hit the play button thingy. I had it set up so all you had to push was the little triangle.
Shouldn't I just have to click on picture, pick, and pick?
No, you got to hit the play button. Pick and pick is only one of the choices. Doink. There we go. Okay, so of this verse 7, it says, and they will not slaughter while the sacrifice of the hairy goats takes place. wanted you to see this, that I put those words in there because it doesn't say that. In Hebrew, it's not necessary. In English, it is. So they will not slaughter while the sacrifice of the hairy goat takes place. All right, that's good. Go ahead and go back to 1. Just hit the 1 on the box. Yeah, there we go. The people should not be making sacrifices while the hairy goat sacrifices are being made, as this causes them to commit adultery. However, if there are no temple priest and no temple, they go back to making the hairy goat / sin sacrifices in their fields, as they cannot follow that which is not leading. So the commandment is, the people cannot make sacrifices outside or inside the tabernacle unless they bring them to the Kohanim, to the priest, while the tabernacle is standing, and the sacrifices are being made to the Kohanim. While it is speculative on my part, given that the text does not say so, it is clear to me, speculatively clear to me, that the people are supposed to make sacrifices when there is no tabernacle, when there is no temple priest, as the only time they are not supposed to is while there is a tabernacle or a temple and temple priest. Keep in mind, the sages built all of their understanding of the Hebrew law from the Onkelos Aramaic Chaldee translation instead of the Hebrew text, because they did not read, write, or speak the Hebrew language. You follow what I'm saying here? Because they taught us that we couldn't make sacrifices because there's no temple and no temple priest. And here the text is saying, when there is no temple or temple priest, that's when we should be making those sacrifices on the ground. But when there is a temple or a tabernacle, either one, and we have the temple priest or the tabernacle priest, however you want to look at it, when we have priests doing the sacrifices, we're supposed to stop. In other words, the sages taught it backwards. And there's your proof right there in the Hebrew text. Shalom v'shalom, you guys.
The blessing, Be'ivrit. Yevarecha Yahweh v'yishmecha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha v'hunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness and favor and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.